crisp morning in downtown Metro City, the sleek facade of Sterling Trust Bank gleamed in the sunlight, a symbol of financial strength and prestige that had served the community for decades. Inside, marble floors, modern art, and the soft murmur of busy tellers created an atmosphere of quiet professionalism. Customers moved briskly through the lobby, confident in the bank's reputation for top-tier service. Amid the routine transactions and hushed conversations, a young boy named Jamal stepped hesitantly through the revolving doors. Jamal, no more than 12 years old, carried a sense of cautious determination. Clutched in his hand was a well-worn envelope containing the small sum he had diligently saved from his part-time weekend work at a local convenience store. Today he was on a mission to deposit his savings into his very first bank account. For Jamal, this was not just a financial transaction, it was a step toward a future he dreamed of, filled with promise and possibility. However, as Jamal approached one of the polished teller windows, his enthusiasm began to wane. The young boy, dressed in a simple t-shirt and jeans that spoke more of resilience than of wealth, attracted unwelcome glances from the bank staff. Miss Denise Clark, a teller known for her brisk efficiency, but also for her habitual impatience with anyone who disrupted the streamlined pace of transactions, regarded Jamal with thinly veiled disdain. "Next," she snapped at the customer ahead, barely pausing to acknowledge Jamal's approach. When it was finally his turn, Jamal timidly placed his envelope on the counter, his eyes downcast. "Good morning, ma'am. I'd like to make a deposit, please," he said softly, his voice trembling ever so slightly. Before Jamal could even explain the significance of the deposit or present his savings with pride, Miss Clark's tone turned cutting. "What is this? A measly sum? I don't see how this is worth our time," she remarked loudly, her voice carrying across the quiet lobby. Her words, dripping with condescension, sent a ripple of discomfort through the waiting customers. Other bank staff exchanged uneasy looks as Ms. Clark continued to belittle him in front of everyone. Jamal's face flushed with humiliation. He fumbled with the envelope, trying to retrieve the money as if to prove its worth, but his small hands betrayed him. A few nearby customers frowned at the display of rudeness, yet most looked away, unsure how to intervene. In that vulnerable moment, Jamal's dream of making a dignified deposit was marred by the sting of public humiliation. Just then, the entrance doors swung open, and in strode Mrs. Evelyn Carter, a woman whose commanding presence seemed to brighten the very air around her. Dressed impeccably in a tailored suit and exuding an aura of calm authority, she walked with purpose toward the teller counter. As she passed, whispers began to circulate among the onlookers. Those who recognized her instantly understood that she was no ordinary customer. "Excuse me," Mrs. Carter said firmly, her voice both gentle and resolute as she addressed Miss Clark. The teller's confident demeanor faltered under the unexpected attention. "I believe you're mistreating a young gentleman who is here on business," Mrs. Carter continued, eyes narrowing slightly as she took in Jamal's downcast expression. "Would you please ensure that he is treated with the courtesy and respect every customer deserves?" A hushed silence fell over the lobby as Miss Clark's face shifted from arrogance to apprehension. "Ma'am? I was just following procedure," she stammered, her tone now subdued. Mrs. Carter smiled slightly, a smile that was equal parts kindness and quiet authority. "Allow me to handle this deposit," she offered, extending a hand toward Jamal. "I'd like to see this young man's savings properly deposited." As Mrs. Carter guided Jamal to a private counter, an assistant manager quickly intervened, apologizing profusely on behalf of the bank for the unacceptable behavior. Murmurs of discontent and sympathy rippled through the waiting customers, and even Ms. Clark appeared chastened, her earlier haughtiness replaced by regretful silence. In a quiet corner of the lobby, Mrs. Carter finally sat down with Jamal. "What's your name, dear?" she asked gently. Jamal, still shaken, replied in a small voice, "Jamal." Mrs. Carter nodded warmly. "Well, Jamal, today is a very important day, isn't it?" she said, leaning in slightly. "I want you to know that your savings are not just money. They're the first building blocks of your future. I'm going to make sure this deposit is handled with the utmost care." A smile broke through Jamal's tears as he clutched his envelope again, this time with renewed confidence. Unbeknownst to everyone in the lobby, Mrs. Carter was not just any customer. She was the owner and founder of Sterling Trust Bank. Her keen eye for detail and relentless dedication had transformed the institution into one of the most trusted banks in the region. Today, her decision to personally step in was not merely an act of kindness. It was a demonstration of the bank's core values, values that insisted every customer, no matter how young or seemingly insignificant, deserved respect and dignity. In the days that followed, the incident quickly became the subject of local headlines and social media discussions. Bank owner defends young saver, demands respect for every customer. Read one article. The story struck a chord with the community, sparking conversations about customer service, respect, and the importance of leadership that leads by example. Mrs. Carter addressed the incident in a public statement. "At Sterling Trust Bank, we believe that every individual, regardless of age or background, deserves to be treated with dignity. Today's event was a reminder to all of us that our commitment to service must never waver, even in the face of routine challenges. I deeply regret that any of our staff fell short of that standard, and I am taking immediate steps to ensure that such behavior is not repeated." As part of her initiative, Mrs. Carter instituted a series of customer service training sessions and established an internal review committee dedicated to ensuring that every customer experience at Sterling Trust was marked by respect and courtesy. The bank's transformation was swift and visible. Staff attitudes shifted, and a new culture of empathy and accountability took root. For Jamal, what began as a humiliating encounter evolved into a powerful memory, a lesson in resilience and the importance of standing up for one's worth. Over time, he would fondly recall that day as the moment he learned that even in a big, intimidating world, there were leaders who cared enough to make a difference. And every time he visited the bank afterward, he did so with a sense of pride, knowing that his mother's vision had built a community where every customer's dreams were nurtured. Thus, the story of the young boy whose deposit was once ridiculed became a testament to the transformative power of compassion and strong leadership. It served as a reminder that true success isn't measured by profit margins alone, but by the respect and dignity afforded to every individual. And in the hallowed halls of Sterling Trust Bank, Mrs. Carter's legacy continued to shine, a beacon of hope, fairness, and the enduring belief that every person deserves to be valued.